Good morning, everyone. Good morning, CD. Talking about my business plan for the EdRec Center and how it's prevalent to today's society. Today, we're going to speak on fatherless daughters and relationships and how the fatherless daughters are affected long term in their relationships. Today, I will be referencing from this article by Jed Diamond titled How Absent Fathers Impact Our Adult Relationships. You may see me looking back and forth. The reason being is I'm recording on YouTube and Instagram simultaneously. All right. So let's get started because I'm on a time restriction with Instagram. How absent fathers impact our adult relationships. How can we heal from a relationship we may never have had? With a question mark. How can we heal from that, people? So, it's a question that leads the work of Jed Diamond, a family and marriage therapist. Diamond is the survivor of something he calls the father wound, a physical or emotional absence of one's paternal parent, physical or emotional, meaning the father either isn't there in the present in the physical form at all, or the father may be there in the physical form, but he's not there emotionally for the child, meaning listening to their concerns, giving feedback, giving them love and support, supporting their goals and dreams and ambition and things of that nature. All right. He has a book called My Distant Dad. Shout to Jed Diamond. Go check out his book, My Distant Dad. So after 2 divorces and years of working as a family and marriage therapist, Diamond made a connection between his father wound and his struggles. He states, maybe if I healed the past, he says, I would in fact heal my present relationship. So what he's referring to is he had multiple divorces, and over time he started to realize, okay, there's something wrong with me. Why my relationships aren't working. It can't be multiple women. They can't all be a problem. So let me check myself. That's basically what he's saying. So he checked himself. When we dare to embark on the healing journey, we open ourselves to making peace with our wounded past. We are able to deepen our present relationships, and we create real, long-lasting love with our partners. What wounded us in the past sometimes gives us the opportunity to grow in the future. The idea of taking 1 step back to take 2 steps forward, right? So we'll go into some Q&A with Jed Diamond. What is the father wound? Let's talk about it. What's that? The father wound is the psychological, relational, and physical dysfunction that occurs in people who grew up with a father who was emotionally or physically absent. So picture a hole in our souls, he says, in the shape of our father. So essentially there's a hole in your spirit in the shape of your father, right? And this affects women, it affects men, it just affects them differently, which we're going to touch on. All right. What does a child need most from their father, he states, as a question. What do they need most? His presence, he says. I agree with that. The most important thing a father can do for their child is just be present. Emotionally and physically. Present. As fathers, to be honest, me personally, I always felt like before, my extensive research into mental health and aspects of it, I always felt like a father's job was simply to secure the future of their child financially. That was his sole real job. A mother's job was to care for the child emotionally and all that other stuff, love them and all that. I never really thought about the idea that a father should also be there emotionally, although I naturally am there for my daughter emotionally and present physically, both, because that's how I was raised. My father, although my parents were separated, he was there for me in the present, in the physical form, and he was also there for me emotionally to give me guidance as far as how I should be, how I should conduct myself as a man, right? So unconsciously, I just automatically did that for my kid, not understanding or knowing the great job that I'm doing in that aspect of fatherhood. So what does a child need most from their father, he says? His presence, his unconditional love, his deep abiding care for who you are as you. meaning accepting you for you so that the child can gain self-acceptance for themselves. They gain that from their father, especially little girls, because little girls she's going to learn what type of man she should fall in love with and what love is from her father. A woman's going to learn what true love is from her father, so that when she becomes an adult, she'll be able to recognize it in a partner or recognize what's not true love from her partner. But if her father isn't present in the physical or emotional form, she'll never learn what true love is. Therefore, she'll just jump from partner to partner to partner to partner, chasing her own tail. If she doesn't get the proper health or the proper counseling or the proper help, should I say, to overcome that hole in her soul, as Jed Diamond likes to refer to it as. If you are a child who has an absent father but is very close to a grandfather and uncle, this is a question in A form, so this is the question. The question is, if you are a child who has an absent father but is very close to a grandfather, an uncle, or a close family friend, would you carry the same wound? Meaning, can those individuals step in and heal you, and then you don't have a problem or an issue? So let's see what he thinks. He states that definitely helps. So it's definitely helpful. But it doesn't fix the father wound. You can't avoid the fact that there is still going to be a deep question of what you lost when you didn't get your father. Excuse me, I just ate some boiled eggs for breakfast. And you'll need to overcome an understanding of what is still unhealed. So what he's saying is, yes, those individuals who step in are important, and they do help. But there's one aspect of healing that they cannot provide, and that's self-healing, self-reflection, self-acceptance. That they cannot heal. How does the father wound affect women and men differently? That's the question. So how does it affect our young women and young men differently? He states generally women tend to be more in touch with the fear, pain, depression, and loss they feel in their present relationships, which tie into the past of their fear of losing their father when they cried as a child and as an adult, maybe, of why their father wasn't there, why their father didn't love them, or whether their father was there, but why didn't he give her or him the emotional support that they needed? So these are the questions that he feels as though you need to overcome within yourself, regardless of who may have stepped into your life to help in order to gain full healing. Whereas men tend to be more in touch with their anger. See, men don't fall into a deep state of depression or fear. They tend to go the opposite route and turn angry, maybe hostile, right? Men don't get a lot of sympathy or empathy when they come across as angry or demanding. But often their anger is a cover for the hurt and the fear that they feel. Because men, we don't like to feel, to display hurt and fear. You know, I grew up in a Christian household, very well-rounded household. Yet when I was into my street activities, right, it was an old saying that never let them see you, never let them see you cry, never let them, see you weak, right? And tears were a sign of weakness, quote unquote. I don't think that way anymore. I think a man who cries is very healthy. I think it's very healthy for a man to cry and be in touch with their emotions. But that's not how I thought growing up. You know, it was the opposite way around. Be emotionless. That was how you be a gangster, you know. And the opposite tends to be true for women. Sometimes the fear and the hurt are a cover for the anger that they haven't dealt with, right? So, and I apologize for any background noise. I have roommates and stuff, and everybody's living within the same facility. So you may hear some background noise, but just try to stay focused. The opposite tends to be true for women. Sometimes the fear and the hurt are a cover for the anger that they haven't dealt with. So instead of them lashing out on society as a whole, on every individual that they come across, like men may do, in a way of this, in a display of anger or frustration or demanding, they tend to, let's say it again, and the opposite tends to be true for women. Sometimes the fear and the hurt are a cover for the anger that they haven't dealt with. So instead they turn fearful and they hurt, they cry. They do cry and show their symptoms of hurt, of fear, of depression. But when you understand this, instead of just being angry with your spouse or being afraid of losing them, you can say, where was the anger when my dad left? So both take it out on their spouse, right? Men in a different way. Women, they'll turn off their emotions. They'll start to back away because they're afraid of losing you, of the relationship. So instead, what they're going to do is push you away. That's their self-defense system. Because if you leave, they'll be destroyed. So instead, they'll leave you. So that this way they feel as though, okay, that's their way of defending themselves. I left him because he wasn't this, he wasn't that. He didn't meet my standards. He was crazy. He was da. They'll come up with a million excuses why they left you in order to try to heal themselves, right? It's like a crabs in a bucket. How do crabs survive when you throw them in a boiling pot of water? They pull other crabs down to get themselves out. That's essentially what women will do. Try to pull the man down to make herself justify herself. All right, so next question. Does the father wound get passed down through generations? And how can we prevent this pattern from continuing? Okay, that's what Jed Diamond states. And then he states as an answer, when you start getting into the father wound, you will almost always find generational wounds. When we are in relationships and we know something is wrong, but we don't know what, we just do the best we can to fix ourselves or fix the other person. So essentially, women, a lot of times in my experience and from what I research, when they have the father wound, they'll try to fix their partner. It's always their partner that needs the fixing. It's always their partner that needs the fixing. And it's not to say that their partner doesn't need some fixing. I'm sure that everybody needs some work to do on themselves. But they never tend to look inwardly and say, okay, he needs fixing, but what do I need to fix? They'll totally neglect that they have issues that need to be dealt with. Okay. So, but then we begin to decipher. It isn't just him or her. It's got to do with our past. So what he's saying is if you get help, you'll begin to decipher, wait a minute. It isn't just my partner. I need some healing too. I need some closure too. I need some answers too. So that I can have a healthy relationship in my next relationship. So that my next relationship doesn't end like this relationship or past relationships. Right? All right. What happens if you haven't healed the father wound? That's the question. The answer is there are two categories of feelings. There are feelings of distance and anger, where we end up pushing away our partner. I just kind of touched on that, right? Or we become insecure and clingy. We want extra assurance from our partner, but that person can never give us enough. So you're either going to push your partner away or you're going to cling so tight to your partner and demand them to change. It depends on how your partner is. So if your partner is also an individual who may be a leader or a person who likes control, right? Then you guys will probably get pushed away because the woman doesn't feel that they can control this individual the way that they would like to. But if the other individual is more of the type that is less of a alpha and more of a beta, right? Then she'll become the alpha, control him and cling to him and make sure he doesn't go anywhere because she could control him like a puppet in order to satisfy herself cravings or whatever, herself, to satisfy herself. Instead of allowing that other individual to be a self-thinker, to make their own decisions and to provide input into the relationship, right? So she'll find a weaker partner and she'll cling to him and then puppetize him, which isn't healthy because that may stunt the growth of that other partner and may also transfer negative energy to that other partner unknowingly. So www.edreccenter.com. In my business plan, we look to help our young teens overcome the father wound early on in life before the disease of the father wound transfers to the next individual and the next generation, causing more divided households, causing more children to grow up fatherless with the father wound, causing more mental health disabilities. Shoot me an email, cdiaz@edreccenter.com. Let me know what you think. Check out the website, edreccenter.com. Read the petition. Sign it. If you agree that my business plan could help our communities overcome the mental health imposed upon us from past generations so that we can grow as a whole, mentally, physically, and financially, and fix our communities once and for all. My name is CD, And I have a $45 million business plan called the EdRec Center for Youth Mental Health Awareness and male and female mentorship. Tune in. Stay tuned. Tube in. One community, one voice. It takes a village to raise a child. So be great, because that is what you are. All right, so I'm still on the YouTube. I had to wrap up Instagram because Instagram only gives a specific time frame. But I'm not going to carry on too much longer on YouTube either. But that closure was for them. Also for you here on YouTube watching, tubed in. Essentially, I would just like to build more upon the father wound, specifically in women. Because in my past videos, if you tune into Instagram, I've really been touching a lot on the males, helping the males. I don't believe I'm the adequate individual to specifically provide female mentorship because I'm not a female and I don't have the experience to relate to them and truly show that sympathy and empathy that is required to touch our young women. Yet, through the EdRec Center, I do plan to have females with these experiences who have received proper counseling and overcome their mental health issues regarding father wounds or other things that may go on in women's lives, who can relate to our young women and be a mentor to them, just as I look to be a mentor towards the males. And other men like me, I would hope, will join up and help me to mentor our young men. So women out there, if you have those experiences, you have overcome some of these experiences, and you have conquered some of these experiences, we need you at the EdRec Center. We need your input. We need your leadership. We need your guidance for our young women. The men cannot do this alone. The YMCA honed in strictly on young Christian men, although they also allowed many Jewish men only, into the program in order to help overcome what was going on back in 1844 during the Industrial Revolution and parts of the Holocaust, or the beginning of the Holocaust, during Jewish genocide, to overcome the drug addictions that were going on, the crime, and the mental health issues that England were dealing with at that specific time. And Sir George Williams thought of this program, and at that time, I guess he felt as though its most effective method was to directly deal with the men, I guess, because at that time, women didn't really have power, right? They were powerless. So to help women was kind of useless because women just were basically a man's property. So it made sense that he just felt as though he needed to help the men because women were just a form of property at that time. So it's like, it would be like me helping a couch. Like, what are you doing helping a couch? Like, so I understand why Sir George Williams did it strictly for men. I don't think it was in a malicious manner or a manner that was negligent towards women. He was just conducting his thought and idea upon the way that society was ran at that time. Yet times have changed, which is why the EdRec Center not only looks to help young men who are Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hebrew, unorthodox, whatever you may be, of all cultures, not just Christian, but also to help women of all cultures, in all religious backgrounds and beliefs, not just Christian or Catholic or whatever, right? So times have changed, therefore the program must change. The YMCA was great back in 1844, and we see what it did for places like Geneva, Switzerland, which is where its founding location is, its main hub. Look at what Switzerland is now. A lot of that has to do with what the YMCA did and the groundwork that it laid in 1844. Imagine if the YMCA was never built and these young men never went through this program to learn how to be productive young men of society and deal with their mental health issues. What would white men who lead our society and our world today be? Where would they be? What would our world look like today without the YMCA? So I'm grateful for the YMCA. I think it did a great thing in 1844. And thanks to the YMCA, in part, we have America. Tube into my next one. Well, we're going to talk about why now America needs its own YMCA. And one day, I'm pretty confident, 100 years from now, generations will look back and say, hey, you know what? Even though the Ed Rec Center had its flaws, I'm glad it was built. Because look what it did for us in 3122. My name is CD, and I have a $45 million business plan for youth mental health awareness, male and female mentorship, and cultural awareness to help us overcome mental health caused by just living our lives. The relationships, wounds of our fathers, racial hatred, Black Lives Matter, and COVID-19. www.edrecenter.com. That's www.edreccenter.com. Go to the website. Read more about it. Check out where I look to build the founding Ed Rec Center. I would like to get it built there. It's a perfect location before they build something else there. I need 6,000 to 10,000 petition signatures. And then I can confidently walk into the Prudential building where the change.org petition is aimed to, present my business plan, which is built upon at least 6,000 members, or reflects at least 6,000 members upon sign up. Let them review it and hopefully gain partial or full funding. Let's make change, long-lasting change, that will not only change our communities, but they will also change our world and our future for the better. My business plan has its flaws. I'm sure the program will have its flaws. And one day, a great mind, a bright mind, will think of a better program that is needed in the future. Just as Sir George Williams thought of one that was needed in the past. But today, I truly believe the Ed Rec Center is what we need. My name is CD. One community, one voice is the idea, because it takes a village to raise a child. So be great. You know why? Because that is what you are. Thank you. And may God bless America.